Fox News alert now on a situation we've been watching unfold for the last 48 hours in Texas. News conference just wrapping up, and this is Van, Texas, located about 70 miles southeast of Dallas. And we knew that this was going to be bad as twisters were setting down last night. After dark, it got worse. The heating in the atmosphere, it was a very warm day yesterday, and now look at some of the pictures coming in. But here's what we've learned. It's the human toll in all of this. 2 people are confirmed dead. 43 people injured. A third of that town looks like this, damaged. And 8 people are still unaccounted for. That number has changed a little bit, and it might be where the 2 deceased come into play, because for the longest while, we were watching 10 unaccounted for, and that has changed, and now we can confirm 2 people have died here. A vicious system moved across from North Texas up to South Dakota last night. People injured in both those states. But particularly bad parts of North Texas and now this area of Van, Texas, outside the Dallas metro. Van Zant County Fire Marshal has just held a news conference. That's where we're getting these details as we learn more, although the pictures say so much, don't they? We pray for them today. As we learn more, we'll bring you more information. We're going to move on now. There are new questions today about what many people see as a major snub of President Obama by Saudi Arabia's new king. This after King Salman announced he's not going to attend this week's White House summit of Persian Gulf states at Camp David amid growing tensions with Iran. 3 other attendees, including the leader of Bahrain, another key U.S. ally, also is sending substitutes for their rulers. 2 of them for health reasons, we're told. The Saudis say the summit overlaps with a 5-day ceasefire we already have reported on in Yemen. That's scheduled to begin tomorrow. Saudi Arabia and Iran have been involved in what is seen as a proxy war in Yemen, where the Saudis have been leading airstrikes on Iran-backed rebels who have taken over the government there. This week's summit expected to try to calm any tensions with the Saudis and other Arab states about a potential nuclear deal with Iran. The White House says the Saudi king is skipping the summit, and it's not a sign of any animosity, and that it was informed of his absence before it was announced. However, I will say this, Senator, we did know on Friday that it was confirmed that the king was coming. Right. Last night, breaking on Fox Report, we learned that it was confirmed that the king is not coming. His very youthful son is one of the 2 delegates who will be coming instead.
Well, I think it shows how flawed the Iran deal actually is, and how much frustration there is not only with the Obama-Clinton foreign policy and the failures that we've seen over the last almost 8 years now. It's disturbing, and I think it sends a very powerful message right now, especially you see what's happening.
What's the message?
The message is that, as I said earlier, that our allies just don't trust us, especially with Iran. Iran is, I believe, a country that needs to be tested, and you need to verify all the time. I don't trust anything they say, and I don't believe many members of the U.S. Senate and House do either. But the president has no foreign policy victory, so what is he going to do? He's going to put together a deal, and Secretary Kerry is going to try to ram it through and do the old political boogie-woogie and try to, oh, this is great, 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 but in reality it's not. And Iran is continuing to obviously build and move towards nuclear capabilities, and it's very scary for that region. And Saudi Arabia is not going to sit back and let it happen.
Jedediah, is it worth breaching relationships that we have in the Middle East with our allies over a deal with Iran?
No, absolutely not. I mean, and this president always seems to have issues with our allies. I mean, we've covered the relationship between President Obama and Netanyahu at length. There always seems to be some sort of contentious problem there. And, you know, Senator Brown is right. People don't seem, our allies don't feel comfortable with this deal. So you really have to question why this president is willing to put his political career first and say, you know what, I don't have any foreign policy successes, so I'm going to push this so that I can go out there and say to the American people, I got a deal, and hope that they don't research it well enough to realize it was a bad deal, rather than actually take into account what our allies are saying and their discomfort with it, and go back to the drawing board and actually put something together that everyone that we need to have our back and whose back we should have feels comfortable with.
Okay, President Obama, 1 second, has invited 6 Gulf kings, emirs, and sultans to this presidential retreat at Camp David. Okay, so far only 2 heads of state are going to attend, Andrea. You know what? I'm thinking Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, is he sipping, having a cup of joe and a side muffin of I told you so?
Probably, and he's probably has a conference call going with the Saudis and Egypt, because we know now that the United States has basically snubbed Israel. They have to work together and form an alliance. But Harris, this is what the White House promised us the president could do well. Community organize. Remember, his big promise was, I'm really good at community organizing and I'm going to get an international coalition. We've heard the words over and over again. And to go back to 2008, that was another thing he was supposed to do well. Right all the wrongs of the Bush administration. Because President Bush isolated so many of our allies. What has he done? The opposite. And now you see, I mean, arguably a proxy war. I mean, the fighting that's going on in the Middle East, and the president is not being included in any of it, except he's cozying up to Iran. And this was by far the biggest snub I think we've seen by a Gulf state.
The timing is just bad on a lot of recent comments by the president, particularly in a New York Times interview. He rubbed these Arab nations the wrong way by making comments about allies like Saudi Arabia should be worried about internal threats because of populations that in some cases are alienated, youth that is underemployed, and ideology that is destructive. And he did at a time when American officials, the public should be showing their support behind these Arab nations. The president's comments were seen as very critical and harmful. And so you talk about how few leaders are showing up there.
You know, I always like when you lay your tapestry of business over something like this. So you've got company CEOs that you've got coming to your house for a big summit. 2 out of 6 show up. What does that tell you about what you're trying to sell?
I better change something.
Right, Scott. You had a quick thought?
No, once again, he's obviously offending our allies and he's emboldening our enemies, and that's been the history of the Obama-Clinton foreign policy, and it's not surprising.
And these summits are a bunch of bull. I mean, can we just say that? I mean, if you're the Saudi king, isn't that what you're thinking too? Really? An Obama summit? I mean, it's all just
They're
done
like, oh,
for
let's
posturing.
go. This is going to be
exactly.
great.
A nice edible arrangement, some cheese
one
and
of the
crackers,
sticking
nothing
points
gets done.
that the White House has with some of these Gulf state leaders is that they want F-35 stealth bombers so that they can defend themselves against a threat from Iran. I'm certain that they would bring that topic to the table, so he might be rather relieved, maybe, that not all of them are showing up. I don't know. We'll see. There's reportedly a major concern overshadowing Hillary Clinton's presidential campaign. What to do? Nope, wait for it. It's not a scandal. It's her husband. What do you do with Bill Clinton? A husband who's constantly in the spotlight. Well, he's very popular. And how his public appearances could create some big problems with Hillary's White House run. Plus, will slow and steady win this race? We'll see if that saying rings true for Jeb Bush as he continues to sit out on the sidelines of the 2016 race. Will his delay in announcing help or hurt him in the long run? We'll take a look. Stay close.